Are you tired of seeing the same series recommended time and again? I hear this all the time. People tell me, Zach, I don't want to hear about Stormlight anymore. I don't want to hear about Song of Ice and Fire, Malazan, Realm of the Elderlings, Dungeon Crawler Carl. I've heard of all of these. I know about them. If you talk about them again, I'm going to murder you. So that's why I'm here today. I'm going to give you 7 different fantasy book recommendations that I think are pretty underrated. You probably have heard of at least a few of these. These are not like completely under the radar, but I bet you have not read all of them. You might not have even heard of 1 or 2 of them. And so my goal with this video is to get at least 1, if not a couple of books on your TBR, and to show you something that maybe you've heard of it in like the periphery, but you don't realize that this could be your next favorite fantasy book. And I think all of these have that potential. Welcome back. Thanks for tuning in. As I mentioned in one of my recent videos, this is going to be a more regular cadence. I'm back, baby. I'm back on YouTube. I'm going to be posting more things. I'm going to be getting you more book recommendations because I have a lot of books to talk about. And today, we have a really good stack of books. We're going to go one at a time. And I think, hopefully, as I mentioned, we're going to try and find you your next favorite fantasy book that you haven't yet read. I think I already gave the caveat that you've probably heard of a few of these. But if you've read all of these already, I don't know if I believe you. But if you have, comment that you've read all of them, and I don't know, maybe you'll win like a sticker or something. All right, first up is The Ember Blade by Chris Wooding. This is a quest-style fantasy, kind of a fellowship situation where you have a group of characters that have to come together to go on a quest to find a magical artifact. That sounds very derivatively set up, I know, but it's done so well. Like, it is a classic fantasy setup, and it uses all of those tropes so enjoyably. But I feel like what's a little fresh about this book is that the cast of characters is a little bit more modern in nature. Like, there is more nuance and grayness to a lot of the different characters and their different motivations and what they are trying to accomplish and how they interact with one another. There is some grittiness in the characters and in some of the things that happen in a way that feels, again, just a little bit more modern, even though structurally this book is very classic high fantasy. And I think that is really fun. The cast of characters has a lot of really cool different characters. Like, there's some funny characters. You have a druid who's super awesome. She's kind of like a Gandalf style character, but a little bit more druid shamanistic. Our main character and his best friend kind of have a bit of a Frodo Sam vibe, and they're always looking out for each other. And this book has a sequence in like a lost city that is just so cool and a little creepy and terrifying. It's just so much fun. I love this. There is a sequel. I actually haven't read the sequel yet because book 3 is not out, and it'll probably be a little while longer. The author has said it's going to be some time before book 3 comes, but book 3 will be coming out at some point. So in the meantime, this book is pretty satisfying in and of itself, even though it does end kind of on a cliffhanger. I still recommend it. You can read the first 2 books now, but this is super slept on. I don't hear many people talking about this, and I think the majority of people who pick this up and love fantasy would have a great time. It's the perfect balance of familiar, cozy, classic fantasy tropes with some fresh, modern character work, and those 2 things coming together, it's magic. Next up, we have The Justice of Kings by Richard Swan. This is the first book in the Empire of the Wolf trilogy. Oh my god, this whole trilogy is awesome. This book is kind of a mashup of a few different things. It's a dark fantasy world. It feels kind of like Dark Souls almost. Like, there's horrifying Lovecraftian entities that are not in the same plane of our existence, but still have some connection to our world. There is necromancy. Our main character is like a magical arcane judge or justice who carries out justice for the emperor, and he can command people to speak with a magical emperor's voice. He can command the dead back to life to talk briefly and learn things about investigations. This is so cool. The magic, the world building, the character work. It's funny at times. This is one of the best fantasy trilogies I've read in the past several years. Absolutely check this out. You will not regret it. Richard Swan is great, and he has a new series set in the same world he's working on, but the Empire of the Wolf trilogy is complete, so go read this. The Forgotten Beasts of Eld by Patricia McKillop is a fantasy book from the 70s, so this one's a little bit of a throwback. This very much has a classic fantasy vibe, but the writing is just beautiful and luscious. Like, her prose is so good. It very much has that classic fantasy feel, kind of akin to Tolkien or Ursula K. Le Guin. Her writing has kind of that feel to it, and I think this book is in that realm of quality. Like, it's not quite on the same level, obviously, as Lord of the Rings or Wizard of Earthsea, but this is like top tier 70s fantasy. And I would say this is elevated. This isn't just pulpy fantasy. This is like the real deal. This is about a wizard named Sybil, and she lives kind of a reclusive life up on a mountain with a bunch of magical animals and like dragons, like magical companions. And she gets drawn into some political affairs in the nearby kingdom when a baby is dropped off at her doorstep who seems to maybe be the heir of the throne, and she's asked to watch this child. She gets kind of pulled into all of these things happening, and it's beautiful. Sybil is such a great, powerful character. She's one of my favorite wizards of all time. This book, it's not super long either. You can get through this pretty quickly. I've recommended this so many times over on my TikTok and Instagram accounts, and I think everybody should read this. I think you'll have so much fun with it, even if you're not as into classical fantasy. This is not hard to read, but it is beautiful to read. It is so worth the time. This year, I read the Tidechild trilogy by R.J. Barker and was blown away by the complexity of his world building. He is so good at taking a cool, fun fantasy concept and thinking through how that would integrate into the various aspects of his world. In the Bone Ships, we have an archipelago with two different kind of warring factions, and they build these ships made out of the bones of Arachesians, which are these giant sea dragons. And these bone ships are way more powerful than a normal ship, and there's a magical element to them, like they require the souls of like dead children to help power some of the magic. It's kind of a whole thing. But it is such a cool world where trade on these bone ships throughout the archipelago is like factored into society, and like culturally, the way people see their value is very much based on who is out sailing, and it's a very naval-based culture, and R.J. Barker just did such a good job thinking through all of that. There's different species, like humans are not the only species that inhabit this land. This has a great cast of pirate characters, like our main point of view character is Joran Twiner, who was the son of a fisherman. He grows up to be kind of a pirate, but not a very good one. He is sort of captain of this dead bone ship that he somehow gets his hands on with a ragtag crew, but his crew doesn't respect him. He's not really maintaining his captaincy at all until one day Lucky Mace Gilbrin, who is like this renowned sailor from the naval fleet of one of the factions, is basically cast out of society, and so she decides to become a pirate. She takes over Joran Twiner's ship, but instead of kicking him out, tells him, "You can be my second in command because I see something in you, even though you're not doing a good job being a leader now." And between the two of them, it becomes like a really good friendship of Lucky Mace and Joran Twiner, and they become like a great captain and first in command as they shape together this crew of the bone ship that they have. And it's just so good. I love this trilogy. The world building, again, is so fresh. You should read this for sure. Another series I read this year is the Legacy trilogy. This one I've only read the first two. There's still a third book I haven't read yet, but the first two books of the Legacy trilogy, Legacy of Ash and Legacy of Steel, are both awesome. This is a really epic scale fantasy where you follow different characters from across several different kingdoms or nations. The different kingdoms are embroiled in a variety of conflicts. Like, one kingdom took over one of the other kingdoms like decades ago, and even though they are now technically part of the same kingdom, there's a lot of tension there, and the de facto rulers of the subjugated kingdom still have a lot of resentment towards their oppressors who took them over. Meanwhile, there's like a third kingdom that is trying to come in and take over all of their kingdom. And then in the background, there are these different gods or divine entities that are kind of steering events, puppeting events, giving special powers to various characters. And so you kind of have these characters that are getting boons from these deities, kind of like Greek mythology, except aesthetically, this is not really Greek or anything like that, but just in the concept of having these divinities grant powers to mortals, there's very much that aspect of it, which is really fun. And then one of the things I like is, even though this is like an epic fantasy with different POV characters across different nations and these like just humongous conflicts that are happening, the story really is following a couple of key characters and their emotional story, and the familial and inter-character drama of like these characters and their family members and their loved ones. And it's kind of like Game of Thrones or something like that, where even though it's epic, you really do have these like dramatic moments between characters and their families, and that often is sort of related to the political maneuverings. You kind of get that here, and I love that about it. It's so good. So many characters I love. Some really surprising developments in the plot that I think keep this really fresh. Like, this did not go the way I expected it to go, and I enjoyed it for that. It really has kept me on my toes, and I'm excited to see what happens in the third book. But in the meantime, I do think this is an underrated series, and I think you'll probably like it. The Mask of Mirrors by M.A. Carrick is a ton of fun. I have sometimes pitched this as Oliver Twist meets Pride and Prejudice with some Batman thrown in there, or maybe a little bit of Sailor Moon. That might make no sense now, but if you read this, it will make sense. This is about a con artist named Ren, who grows up impoverished, and she decides to try and con her way into the nobility by pretending to be someone else. And so it's this kind of con game. That's where you get kind of the Oliver Twist, like she's part of a poor thieving crew. It's kind of like Liza of Locke Lamora too, where she's pretending to be part of the nobility to scam the nobility in a way, but also to establish herself as a part of it so that she can gain riches, but also influence. But part of what makes this really fun is the Batman or secret identity element, where she has some magical powers and she puts on like a mask and becomes a different character, where she can use magic and do various things. And that's where it feels very Batman or Sailor Moon. And there are some other masked vigilantes in this book. In particular, a mysterious renegade named the Rook. And it's just so cool. Like, again, strong Sailor Moon vibes. This is so much fun. Another trilogy that I really loved, the audiobooks of this one are incredibly well done. This is so worth the read. And finally, The Tainted Cup by Robert Jackson Bennett. Now, this one, maybe I can't really call it underrated anymore because this won the Hugo last year, I believe. So it's kind of hard to call a Hugo Award winner underrated. And yet, I still think this is a little bit underrated. Like, even though it's been recognized at the Hugo Awards, I think a lot more people should try this book than already have. This is so much fun. This is a dark fantasy world with giant Leviathan kaiju monsters that come out of the ocean and wreck the Empire. So the Empire has erected these humongous walls to try and stop them. And then these Leviathans' blood is like toxic, but also magical and mutates things. And so you have a magic system based on mutation and all sorts of crazy stuff. And then in the mix of that, these stories are mystery novels, very Sherlock Holmes style. We have a character named Ana Delabra, who's kind of our Sherlock, the brilliant genius investigator, who's also kind of eccentric and maybe a bit mercurial. And then her assistant, Din, who is our point of view character. He's the John Watson. He is kind of her eyes and her arms and legs. He goes out and does a lot of the grunt work while she then pieces together all of the clues of the puzzle. And then each of these books, they very much are a mystery of the week, but it's a mystery set in just the coolest, darkest, epic fantasy world. And those different genres mixing, it gives it mystery, horror, dark fantasy, epic fantasy, all mixed together, and it's done so well. Robert Jackson Bennett he's great. He's good at writing character, he's good at dialogue, he's incredible at world building. I'm almost done with the second book, and I'm loving it. The third book I think it just came out, or it's just about to come out. So you should absolutely check these out if you haven't. They're very worth it. They're so much fun, especially if you're like into mysteries. This is going to hit the spot. So there you have it. Those are 7 underrated fantasy books, in my opinion. You've probably heard of some of them. I doubt you have read every single one of these. If you have, tell me, and I will mail you a sticker or something. I don't know what I'll give you, but I probably won't believe you right away, because some of these are somewhat obscure. But if you have read all of them, then good job. You are very well read. If not, here's your homework. You're going to enjoy all of these. Thanks again for watching. As always, one of these days I will think of an outro, but it is not this day.